The galaxy was burning, not in one place, not in one battle, but everywhere. From the shining core worlds to the dim outer colonies, flames and silence spread like a plague. The enemy fleets moved without mercy, without pause, and without reason. They consumed everything, ships, cities, even entire civilizations, as though the galaxy itself was their prey. For thousands of years, the great empires had fought wars among themselves. They had built fleets of silver and steel, forged armies in endless numbers, and convinced themselves they were strong. But all their strength, all their pride, all their power meant nothing now, because against the new enemy, there was no victory. The Council had no name for them. Some called them the Eaters, others the Endless Swarm, and some whispered only one word: extinction. They appeared without warning, descending upon the first frontier world like a tide of black fire. The defenders had fought bravely, but in days they were nothing but dust. Then another world fell, then another, and another still. The council gathered in their vast chambers, voices trembling, wings shaking, claws clicking nervously. They argued, as politicians always do, but their arguments were hollow. Some demanded surrender, some demanded war. Others, the wisest, only lowered their eyes and said nothing at all, because deep down they all knew the truth. There was no stopping. The swarm. Ships that could shatter moons were ripped apart in seconds. Weapons that had ended empires bounced harmlessly off the invaders' living armor. And the enemy itself, was it a machine? Was it alive? No one knew. The swarm never spoke, it never bargained, it only destroyed. And now the swarm had come for the last bastion, the Council's heart world. On the bridge of the Resolute, High Commander Sereth stood in silence. His hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. Before him, the holomap glowed with red markers. Each red dot was an enemy fleet, and the map was filled with red. All defenses are in place, his second-in-command said softly. Every ship is ready. Sereth nodded, though he felt no pride in the words. The defenses were broken fleets patched together from shattered empires. The ships were old, slow, and hopelessly outmatched. Even if every vessel fired at once, they could not match a single enemy swarm cluster. But they would fight anyway, because there was nothing else left to do. Signal the fleet, Sereth said. His voice was calm, though inside he felt only despair. This will be our stand. We fight for the Council. We fight for the galaxy. Across the stars, thousands of captains repeated the order. And one by one, weary crews prepared for their final battle. The swarm arrived like a storm. Dark shapes poured from the void, moving with terrible grace. Their ships were not made of metal, but of something darker, organic, shifting, alive. They swam through space as though it were water, countless in number, blotting out the stars. The defenders opened fire. Beams of plasma cut across the void. Missiles screamed through the darkness. Torpedoes detonated in brilliant flashes of light. For a heartbeat, it looked as though the defenders might stand, but then the swarm struck back. The enemy ships split apart like living blades, darting between fire. Their weapons were not missiles or plasma, they were pure destruction. Black beams lanced out, slicing ships in half. Acid clouds sprayed into space, melting armor and hull. Tendrils of burning energy wrapped around battleships, dragging them. Into the void, the defenders died in silence. 1,000 ships became 500. 500 became 200. 200 became 50. The holomap aboard the Resolute bled red, as if the stars themselves were screaming. Sereth gripped the console. His officers shouted, begged for orders, but there was nothing left to. "Order, this is the end," whispered one of them, and Sereth could not deny it. Far across the battlefield, a smaller ship drifted among the chaos. It was the scout vessel Vera, one of the last to escape the burning colonies. Its captain, a young officer named Talrin, watched the carnage in horror. "This can't be the end," he muttered. His claws dug into the armrest. There must Be something, anything. His crew stared silently. They had seen worlds destroyed, families lost, entire fleets erased. Their eyes were hollow, but Talrin remembered something. A rumor, a story. Words spoken by dying elders. Once, long ago, there had been ancient protectors. A race not bound to the Council, not bound to the galaxy's petty wars. They had been strong, too strong, so strong that even the memory of them had been forbidden. Some said they had destroyed themselves, others said they had left the galaxy behind, and some said they were only waiting in silence. Talrin whispered, "Humans." His crew stirred. Some scoffed, others shivered. "Humans are a myth," one said bitterly. "Old lies," said another. "They never existed." But Talrin did not look away from the void. If they were only a myth, why do the elders still whisper their name? Back aboard the Resolute, the last Allied fleet was collapsing. Sereth's comms officer cried out, "Commander, enemy forces have breached the core line. We have no more ships." Sereth bowed his head. This was it, the end of everything. He opened his mouth to give the final order, "Prepare for ramming runs," when the comms lit up again. "Sir, strange signals. Unknown origin." Sereth froze. "What kind of signals?" The officer's voice shook. "Power readings. Unlike anything we've ever seen. Sir, it's not swarm." The bridge fell silent. Officers leaned closer to their stations. For a moment, even the sound of battle outside seemed distant. "Show me," Sereth ordered. The holomap shifted. Amidst the sea of red markers, a new blip appeared. It pulsed with blue light, bright and strong. Too strong, and it was moving toward them. Talrin's ship saw it first. The Vera spun its sensors toward the anomaly. At first, it was only static. A broken pulse, too powerful for their weak scanners. Then slowly it became clear. An object, massive, larger than any battleship, larger even than the swarm's war beasts. It glided from the darkness like a shadow given shape. The crew gasped. That's impossible," one whispered. "What is it?" another breathed. Talrin's eyes widened. He knew, he had always known. The hull was scarred, ancient, but still whole. Its shape was alien, but not swarm. It bore the marks of weapons older than the Council itself, and across its side, half hidden in dust and ruin, was a symbol, a circle, blue and white, a world with a single moon, Earth. Talrin's voice was a whisper, trembling with both fear and hope. Humans. On the Resolute, alarms rang as the strange ship entered the battlefield. Both swarm and defenders turned toward it. The holomap flickered as its power readings grew. Sereth's officers shouted in confusion, "Unknown vessel detected! Size exceeds classification. Power levels impossible." Sereth stared. His chest tightened. He remembered old stories, tales told in secret, stories he had dismissed as myths, the ancient protectors, the vanished race, the humans, and now one of their ships had returned. For a moment, the battlefield froze. Even the swarm seemed to hesitate, their endless advance slowing. The strange vessel drifted into the light of a distant star, and its full size was revealed. It was not a ship, it was a fortress, a weapon of war beyond anything the galaxy had ever known. The defenders whispered in awe. The swarm recoiled in silence, and then the signals grew stronger. Across every channel, across every frequency, the same sound echoed. It was not alien. It was not swarm. It was something else. Something the galaxy had not heard in thousands of years. A voice, calm, steady, human. "Transmission incoming," Sereth's comms officer stammered. The bridge crew leaned closer. Hearts pounded. The voice spoke only once. "We are here." And with those words, hope, long dead, was reborn. But no one knew whether that hope would save them or destroy them all. To be continued in Part 2, Whispers of the Forgotten. The battlefield was silent. For the first time since the war began, silence spread across the stars. The swarm ships, endless and merciless, drifted without firing. The shattered defenders, bleeding and broken, stared into the void with trembling disbelief, because something impossible had appeared. A ship, not like theirs, not like the swarms. Something older, stronger, wrapped in shadows of history. Its hull was scarred yet whole. Its weapons were silent, yet terrifying. Its presence was undeniable. It was human. The galaxy had forgotten the humans. Or perhaps it had chosen to forget. For thousands of years, the Council had banned their name from history. Records were erased, monuments destroyed, and even the mention of Earth was forbidden. To most, humanity was only a ghost story told, to frighten younglings. But now, as the colossal ship glided through the wreckage, those whispers returned. And fear returned with them. "Commander," Sereth's comms officer whispered on the Resolute, "it's broadcasting again. The signal is repeating." The voice came across every channel, calm, steady, impossible. "We are here. The Allied." Fleets murmured in disbelief. Crews that had lost all hope leaned toward their consoles, desperate for more. Some cheered, some prayed, some wept. But others remembered the old warnings. Humans were not saviors. They were destroyers. The galaxy had erased them, not because they were weak, but because they had been too strong, strong enough to frighten the Council itself. And if the stories were true, they had vanished only after burning half the stars. On the scout ship Vera, Captain Talrin could not look away from the screen. His crew stared with him, their faces pale. "It can't be real," one whispered. "It is," Talrin said firmly, though his voice trembled. "It's human. Look at the symbol, the blue world, the moon. There can be no doubt." His second officer hissed in fear. "Captain, if the stories are true, then this ship may be worse than the swarm." Talrin shook his head. "Or it may be the only chance we have left." The swarm moved first. As if awakened from a trance, their ships surged forward. Dark shapes streaked toward the human vessel, firing beams of black fire. Acid clouds erupted in the void. Tendrils of destruction wrapped around empty space, and the human ship did not move. It did not dodge. It did not fire. It simply absorbed the storm. Explosions danced across its hull, but when the light faded, it remained untouched. Not a single scar was added to its ancient armor. The defenders gasped. The swarm had never failed to destroy. Nothing had ever resisted their attacks. Until now. On the Resolute, Commander Sereth leaned forward. "What kind of ship is that?" his science officer stammered. "Energy readings. Impossible." "Sir, I cannot classify them. The shields, if they are shields, are operating at levels I can't even calculate." Sereth's claws gripped the console. "Then we are not looking at a ship, are we?" The officer hesitated. "No, sir. We are looking at a fortress. A human fortress." Inside the Vera, Talrin's crew argued in panic. "We should run, while—" "We still can," one shouted. "If it destroys the swarm, then it will destroy us next," cried another. "Humans don't save," hissed a third. "They conquer." Talrin silenced them with a raised hand. His eyes never left the colossal vessel. "No, we stay. We witness this." The swarm redoubled their attack. Entire clusters hurled themselves against the human warship. Their black beams intensified, tearing apart anything else in their path. Still, the human ship did not move. Then, its weapons came alive. They did not fire like plasma cannons. They did not launch missiles or beams. Instead, the ship's sides opened like the jaws of some ancient beast. Energy pulsed within, bright as a newborn star. And then, light. One strike, one burst of energy, and an entire swarm fleet vanished, not destroyed, not broken, erased. The defenders watched in awe as the impossible unfolded. Ships that had wiped out empires, that had consumed galaxies simply ceased to exist. The human vessel did not roar. It did not scream. It killed with silence. On the Resolute, officers fell to their knees. Some cried, others trembled. Sereth alone stood tall, yet even he felt fear. This was no ally, this was something greater, something beyond. He whispered, "What have we awakened?" Across the fleet, whispers spread. Old stories resurfaced, spoken in secret tones. They once ruled the stars. They built weapons that devoured worlds. They burned entire systems to end a single war. They vanished before we were born, and the galaxy was glad to see them gone. And now, they were back. On the Veyra, Talrin's second officer turned to him, voice shaking. "Captain, do you see? Do you understand what this means?" Talrin nodded slowly. "It means the stories were true. It means the humans were never gone. They were only waiting. But waiting for what?" Talrin had no answer. The human ship fired again. Another swarm fleet vanished. The battlefield shifted from despair to shock. The defenders, once ready to die, now watched in silence. For the first time in memory, the swarm retreated. Their endless tide broke, ships scattering into the void. The impossible had happened. The swarm was afraid. The galaxy should have cheered, but no one did, because the human vessel still lingered, silent, its weapons glowing, its presence suffocating. And then it spoke again. This time, not a single phrase. Not just, "We are here." A new transmission echoed across every channel, every frequency and every language. The voice was calm, deep. "Human, stand by. The war you know is only the beginning." The council chambers fell into chaos. The defenders froze in fear. The swarm hesitated in confusion, and aboard the Resolute, Commander Sereth whispered the truth no one wanted to hear. If the swarm was not the enemy, then what are the humans preparing for? The swarm was gone. Not defeated, not destroyed. They had retreated. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, the swarm had turned away from battle. And the reason was clear. The ship. It drifted in silence, larger than a city, its weapons still glowing with the light of freshly burned fleets. Every sensor, every scan, every eye in the galaxy was locked onto it. And the longer they looked, the more one truth became undeniable. This was no ordinary vessel. This was not something the galaxy should even be seeing. It was a ship that should not exist. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Sereth felt the weight of 1,000 generations pressing down on him. His officers whispered in terror, some clutching their chest plates as if in prayer. "Sir," his science officer said, voice shaking, "the readings, they don't make sense." "Explain," Sereth ordered, though his throat felt dry. "I can't." The officer's eyes darted across the glowing console. Its energy core is older than any known technology. Its weapons are beyond anything in the archives. Its hull, it resists every scan. It's as though the ship refuses to be understood. Another officer, pale and trembling, whispered, "It's human." The bridge went silent. No one wanted to say the word, but now that it had been spoken aloud, it could not be taken back. Human, the forbidden race, the erased history, the nightmare that had returned. Across the Council's communication net, panic spread. Diplomats shouted across secure channels. Admirals demanded explanations. Scholars tried to silence the rumors, but it was too late. The stories were out. The humans had not vanished. The humans had not died. The humans had come back. On the scout ship Veyra, Captain Talrin stared at the ancient fortress as if it were a dream. His second officer leaned closer. "Captain," she whispered, "you understand what this means, don't you? That ship, it's older than our empires. It shouldn't be here. Talrin nodded slowly. No, it shouldn't. But it is. And if it's real, the officer said, her voice quivering, then all the old warnings were real too. The swarm lingered at the edges of the system, their dark shapes twitching and shifting, but they did not advance. They circled like predators, wary, afraid. For the first time, they hesitated, but the humans did not move either. The massive ship drifted in silence, its presence pressing against every soul that looked upon it. Then suddenly its lights shifted, sections of its hull came alive, glowing with deep blue pulses. And across the comnet, a voice returned. Do not interfere. The words echoed in every language, in every frequency, understood by all on. The resolute, Sereth felt the breath leave his chest. The voice was human, clear, strong, commanding. But it was not a voice of comfort. It was not the tone of a savior. It was a warning. Do not interfere. What are they doing? An officer whispered. The answer came quickly. The massive ship began to move. Slowly at first, then with impossible speed, it turned toward the void beyond the system, the direction from which the swarm had come. It was hunting them. Talrin gripped the arm of his chair. They're not here for us, he muttered. They're here for the swarm. His second officer shook her head. Or maybe they're here for something worse. Talrin froze. Worse! The officer's voice trembled. Don't you remember the old stories? The humans didn't vanish because of us. They didn't disappear because of weakness. They left because they were fighting something. Talrin's claws dug into the chair. Her words chilled him more than the swarm ever had. If the humans were returning now, after all this time, what had woken them? The Resolute trembled as the human ship passed. Even at a distance, its sheer presence shook the defenders' hulls. Sensors screamed with false readings. Energy levels surged to the point of collapse. Commander, the comms officer whispered. It's hailing us again. Sereth's throat tightened. He nodded. Put it through. The voice returned. Calm, steady, human. This is Earth's vengeance. Stand by. The words spread across the fleet like wildfire, across the galaxy like fire through dry fields. Earth. The word no one dared to speak was now echoing through the stars. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Alien leaders shrieked and argued. Some demanded alliance, others demanded retreat, and still others demanded the immediate destruction of the human ship. But their voices were small compared to the storm rising in the hearts of ordinary people. Across colonies, across battlefields, across burning worlds, one truth took root. The humans had returned, and no one knew if that was salvation or the end. In the shadows of the council chamber, an old historian lowered his hood. His eyes burned with fear. He had studied the erased archives in secret, risking death for forbidden knowledge, and he knew what was coming. The humans are not our saviors, he whispered. They are our executioners, and if they are awake again, it means the true enemy has returned. But no one listened. Back aboard the Vera, Captain Talrin's crew begged him to retreat. We should flee while we can, one shouted. We should escape this system before it burns. But Talrin only shook his head. His gaze stayed locked on the human vessel. No, we stay, we witness this, because whatever comes next will decide the fate of the galaxy. The human ship accelerated, chasing the swarm into the void. Its engines burned with light brighter than suns. Its weapons pulsed with power older than empires. And the defenders watched as the impossible vessel disappeared into darkness, leaving silence in its wake. For the first time, the swarm had been forced to retreat. For the first time, the galaxy felt something close to hope. But beneath that hope was something colder, something darker, fear, because they all knew the truth. That ship should not exist. That ship belonged to a race that should not exist. And if it had returned now, then the galaxy was standing on the edge of something far worse than the swarm. On the Resolute, Sereth whispered the words that would soon echo across every world. The humans have awakened, and the galaxy will never be the same. As the human ship vanished into the dark beyond, the system, the last transmission it sent across the stars, burned into every channel. We did not return to save you. We returned because something worse is coming. The galaxy froze, and in that silence fear swallowed hope whole. The last defenders of the galaxy had accepted death. Their fleets were broken, their weapons useless, their hope long gone, and then the humans returned. The great warship drifted through the void like a sleeping giant, its hull scarred but unbroken, its engines silent but filled with impossible power. Even the swarm, those endless predators that had devoured worlds, had stopped their advance, circling warily as though sensing something greater than themselves. But the galaxy's defenders soon learned a terrible truth. The humans had not come to save them. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Sereth gripped the console as the ancient human vessel reappeared from the void. It had pursued the swarm for hours, hunting them into the darkness beyond the system. Now it was back, silent, massive, and alive with power. "Commander," his comms officer whispered, "the ship's weapons, they're charging again." The bridge crew froze. Every sensor screamed. Every warning light flared red. The human warship was locking its weapons, but not just on the swarm, on everything. The key Allied fleets panicked. Captains screamed across the channels, "They're targeting us! Humans are hostile! We must retreat now!" Sereth's claws dug into the console. His officers turned to him for orders, fear burning in their eyes. If the human ship fired now, the galaxy's last defenders would be erased in seconds. "Hold," Sereth said, though his voice shook. "Do not fire, do not move, wait." But his heart thundered in his chest, because deep down he knew waiting might mean their deaths. On the scout ship Vera, Captain Talrin and his crew stared in frozen silence. The human vessel filled their screens, a mountain of metal and shadow, its glowing weapons aimed at friend and foe alike. His second officer whispered, "It's going to destroy us all." Talrin shook his head. "No, not yet. Look closer." The weapons shifted again, their targeting patterns moving. The swarm ships, those that had lingered at the system's edge, were caught in the crosshairs first. But the human warship did not fire immediately. It waited, its weapons pulsing with restrained fury. "Why are they waiting?" his officer asked. Talrin's voice was low, certain. "Because humans don't strike first. They strike last, and when they do, nothing survives." The swarm surged forward. Their hesitation was gone. As though enraged by the challenge, the living fleets poured into the system again. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of ships. Black beams cut through space. Acid clouds erupted like storms. Tendrils lashed toward the defenders. The Allied fleet tried to resist, but their firepower was a flicker against the storm. Ships burst into flames, hulls torn apart in silence. The Resolute shook violently as a nearby cruiser was sliced in half. "Shields failing," Sereth's officers cried. "We can't hold them." And then the human ship moved. Its weapons fired, not one, not two, but an entire broadside of blazing light. Beams brighter than suns ripped across the void. Each shot carved through entire swarm clusters, erasing them instantly. Their black tendrils disintegrated in the storm. Their acid clouds burned away before they could spread. The galaxy had never seen such power. The defenders, who had lost all hope, stared in awe. For the first time, the swarm was not advancing. For the first time, the swarm was dying. But the human ship did not stop. It unleashed wave after wave of destruction. Missiles, sleek and silent, streaked through the void. They split apart into smaller warheads, each one finding its target with terrifying precision. Every explosion was a star reborn. Plasma cannons opened, their fire tearing apart ships like paper. Gravity weapons bent space itself, crushing entire clusters into nothing. The swarm screamed across the comnet, not in words, but in static and shrieks that chilled the blood. They twisted and writhed, trying to retreat. But the humans hunted them, striking with merciless accuracy. The stars themselves seemed to tremble under the fire. On the Vera, Talrin's crew fell silent. "This is not war," one whispered. "This is extermination." Talrin said nothing. He could not look away. His people had fought for months, losing billions of lives, and barely slowed the swarm. But the humans had erased entire fleets in minutes. And yet he felt no comfort, no safety, only fear, because he knew the humans could do the same to them. Back aboard the Resolute, Commander Sereth's officers cheered as the swarm collapsed. For the first time, the endless tide was broken. The defenders had a chance to breathe, but Sereth did not join them. He watched the human vessel closely, its weapons fired with cold precision, never missing, never hesitating. This was not the act of a savior, it was the act of a predator. "Sir," his science officer said suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission from the human ship." The bridge went silent. "Put it through," Sereth ordered. The voice returned, calm, unshaken, terrifying. "Do not mistake this fire for mercy. We did not return for you. We returned for what is coming." The word sent a chill through every soul. The humans had not come to save the galaxy. Their war was not with the swarm alone. Something else was out there. Something worse. On the Vera, Talrin's second officer whispered, "What could be worse than the swarm?" Talrin's eyes darkened. "Something that even the humans fear." The human ship continued its assault until the swarm finally broke, their fleets scattering into the void. The system grew quiet again, though wreckage drifted like ash across the stars. The defenders expected the humans to turn and address them, to offer alliance, to give orders, to do something. But the colossal vessel did none of these things. Instead, it began to charge its weapons again. On the Resolute, alarms blared. "They're locking onto us," an officer shouted. "They're preparing to fire." Panic spread through the bridge. Captains across the fleet screamed in terror. "Commander, what do we do?" Sereth stood frozen, his claws trembling above the console. He had no answer. He had seen what those weapons could do. If the humans fired on them now, the defenders would vanish as easily as the swarm. He took a slow breath. His voice cracked as he gave the only order he could. "Stand by." The human ship's weapons reached full charge. The void lit with terrible light. Every defender braced for death, but the weapons did not fire. Instead, they shifted, moving past the Allied fleets, locking onto something else. The darkness beyond the system. Something hidden. Something massive. And then, across every channel, the human voice returned, low, steady, filled with grim certainty. "It has already begun." From the depths of space, new signals appeared. Not swarm, something older, something greater. And the galaxy realized with horror. The swarm had only been the first wave. The swarm was broken. The defenders of the galaxy watched in silence as the human warship drifted through the wreckage, its weapons still burning, its shadow stretching across the stars. For the first time in centuries, the predators had fled. The tide had turned, but no one cheered. No one celebrated. Because the humans were not allies. They had destroyed the enemy, yes, yet now their weapons were locked on the galaxy's last surviving fleets. Were the humans here to save them, or to finish what the swarm had started? The bridge of the Resolute was deathly quiet. Every officer stared at the colossal warship filling their screens. Its hull was a mountain of dark metal, glowing with cracks of white fire. Entire civilizations had begged for salvation. Instead, the humans had given them silence and the steady aim of their weapons. "Commander," the tactical officer whispered, "the human ship is fully charged. If it fires, we're gone," Sereth finished grimly. "All of us." He tried to steady his breathing. His claws tapped against the console, leaving faint scratches. He had fought the swarm for years, prepared himself for death countless times. But this was different. This was not death by monsters. This was judgment. Across the Allied channels, panic erupted. "We must retreat." "No, hold position. If we run, they'll destroy us." "They're worse than the swarm." The voices grew desperate, breaking into shouting, begging, cursing. Civilizations that had once stood proud now trembled like prey. Sereth cut the channel. He could not bear the chaos. His eyes remained locked on the human ship. "Why wait?" his science officer whispered. "If they mean to kill us, why don't they fire?" Sereth's gut twisted. "Because they want us to know something first." On the scout ship Vera, Captain Talrin studied the same terrifying sight. He had seen the humans annihilate the swarm without hesitation. He had heard their voice, cold and unyielding, speak of something greater that was coming. Now he wondered if the humans even considered the defenders worth saving. "Captain," his second officer said, "the crew is asking, what if? They see us as enemies too." Talrin didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the endless hull of the warship, at the weapons that hummed with restrained fury. Finally, he whispered, "Then we will learn what happens when gods pass judgment on mortals." The silence broke. The human ship transmitted again. A single voice filled every ship, every channel, every ear, calm, steady, beyond emotion. "You fight bravely, but you fight blindly. You think the swarm is your doom. It is not. The swarm was only a tool, a weapon unleashed to test your strength, and you have failed." Gasps filled the Resolute's bridge. Sereth's officers looked to him in terror, as though he could shield them from the words. The voice continued. "We watched. We waited. We saw you crumble, world by world, fleet by fleet. You begged for mercy and found none. You sought unity and found only fear. You are not ready for what comes next." The silence that followed was worse than the words. It was the silence of a predator deciding whether the prey still had use, or whether to strike. On the Vera, Talrin's fists clenched. "They're not talking about the swarm," he said. His officer frowned. "Then what?" Before the question could finish, the sensors lit up. Alarms screamed. "Captain, new contacts, emerging from the deep void." Talrin's blood ran cold. On the screen, shadows unfolded from the darkness. Vast structures of metal and energy, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They dwarfed even the human warship. They moved with mechanical precision, their shapes angular and ancient, like fragments of gods themselves. The crew stared in horror. "What are they?" Talrin's voice was barely a whisper. "The true enemy!" The human voice returned, cutting through the rising panic. "They were the makers of the swarm. They are older than your histories. They are the architects of extinction, and they have awoken." Sereth's crew trembled. His communications officer stammered, "Commander, if what they say is true, then we never stood a chance." Sereth's gaze remained fixed on the human vessel. "No, we never did." The massive constructs advanced, slow and unstoppable. Energy crackled across their surfaces like living storms. Their presence warped gravity itself, pulling wreckage and shattered ships into spirals of destruction. One of Sereth's officers cried out, "They're scanning us!" "Not just us," another whispered. "The whole system, every ship, every survivor, every secret." Nothing could hide from their gaze. And then, with terrible certainty, the first of the constructs opened fire. A beam of pure energy, wide as a planet's orbit, swept across the battlefield. It cut through the wreckage, through the drifting remains, of swarm and ally alike. A single cruiser caught in its path was erased in silence, gone before its crew even had time to scream. The defenders panicked. Ships scattered, shields flaring, weapons firing blindly into the dark. Their strikes hit nothing. The constructs were untouchable, wrapped in barriers that bent every shot away. Sereth gripped the console. "All ships, evasive maneuvers, do." Not engage directly, but his words felt hollow. They were insects scattering before titans. Then the human ship moved. It surged forward, weapons flaring to life. Every cannon, every missile, every beam ignited at once. The void became fire. The first construct staggered under the assault. Its shields flared, its form shuddered. For the first time, the defenders saw something that had seemed impossible. The titans could bleed. On the Vera, Talrin's crew erupted in desperate cheers. They can be hurt. The humans can fight them. But Talrin did not join their joy. His eyes narrowed, his thoughts heavy. Yes, the humans could fight them, but at what cost? And would the humans see the galaxy's defenders as allies in this war, or as obstacles to be removed? The humans had the firepower. They had the strength. But their intentions remained hidden. Were they executioners, or the only hope left? The resolute, Sereth gave his officers the only command he could: hold position, watch, do not interfere. His crew looked at him in shock. "Commander, we can't just do nothing." "Yes, we can," Sereth snapped. His voice was iron. "Because if we fire now, if we make the wrong move, the humans may turn their guns on us instead. And if they do, our last chance dies with us." The bridge fell silent. The crew obeyed, though fear burned in every face. They watched helpless, as titans and humans clashed in fire. The battle shook the stars. The human warship danced with impossible grace, its vast frame moving like a predator through the void. Weapons tore through construct shields, ripping away layers of armor. Each strike was a sun's fury unleashed, but the constructs fought back. Their beams lanced across the battlefield, slicing into the warship's armor. Explosions rippled along its hull. For the first time, the humans bled too. The defenders held their breath. The gods of old were at war, and the galaxy was caught in the crossfire. Then the human voice returned, strained but unyielding. "Choose now. Stand with us, or be destroyed with what comes." Every ship received the transmission, every surviving. Captain heard the words. On the resolute, Sereth froze. The choice was his. Ally with the humans, become pawns in their war, or risk being swept away with the enemy. His officers looked at him, desperate. "Commander, what do we do?" Sereth's claws trembled above the console. He felt the weight of his entire people pressing down on him. If he chose wrong, their extinction was certain. On the Vera, Talrin's heart pounded. His officers leaned toward him. "Captain, are they saviors or executioners?" Talrin stared at the burning stars, at the titans locked in battle, at the human warship that held the fate of the galaxy in its guns. He whispered the only truth he knew. They are both. The humans had given the galaxy a choice: ally with them, or be erased with the enemy. And as the titans closed in, one truth became clear. There was no third option. The galaxy had always believed the invaders were the greatest threat to exist. Their endless fleets, their merciless destruction, what could be worse? But when humanity spoke, the stars seemed to hold their breath, for the humans revealed something darker, something far older than the invaders. The galaxy thought the war they fought now was the end. Humanity whispered a truth that froze every heart. The true enemy had not yet awakened. The great human ship hung silent in the void, its hull marked by scars of ancient battles no one could comprehend. The Allied leaders sat in trembling silence, waiting for answers. At last the voice returned, calm, cold, heavy with knowledge. You believe these creatures, the ones who burn your worlds, are the end of you, the human said. But they are nothing more than servants, tools of a greater master. What you fight now is not the war we once waged. It is only the echo of it. Gasps filled the council chamber. For generations, they had believed the invaders were an unstoppable wall of death. Now, humanity claimed they were only pawns. What do you mean? Asked Chancellor Vera of the Thalith. Her voice trembled. What master? What war? The human ship systems hummed. A long pause followed, as if deciding how much truth the galaxy deserved. We fought them, the voice said at last. We fought the ones who made these creatures. The ones who build empires from shadows. We called them the architects of silence. Long before your civilizations rose, they came for us, and we nearly lost everything. The words struck like thunder. Architects of silence, a name never recorded in the histories of the Council, never whispered by scholars. It was new, yet it felt like something old, a shadow reaching across ages. The human explained, they created the swarm you call invaders. They gave them purpose. They shaped them into endless weapons, a tide that cannot be stopped. You thought you faced the heart of the storm, but it is only the rain. Every leader fell into uneasy silence. The thought was unbearable. If the swarm that consumed their fleet so easily was only a tool, then what kind of power did the masters wield? The Zarathi delegate snarled, scales rippling. You lie. This is human arrogance. You return after ages, claiming knowledge no one else remembers. Why should we trust you? The human voice remained steady. You do not need to trust. Soon you will see. Those words chilled them more than any threat. The human ship projected images into the chamber. Grainy records, half corrupted with time, but still terrifying. Vast fleets clashing in star systems now long dead. Weapons that split planets apart. Swarms greater than any the galaxy had ever seen, covering suns like shadows. And, at the center, monstrous shapes, colossal vessels unlike anything the galaxy's science could explain. Their designs were alien, cold and deliberate. They moved like predators through the void, bending the swarm to their will. This was the war we fought, the human voice said. It lasted centuries. Entire civilizations burned. Humanity did not survive untouched. We sacrificed worlds. We sacrificed ourselves. In the end, we trapped the architects beyond the rim, sealed in the black. But not forever. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted, leaders argued, panic spreading like fire. They are returning, cried one. They were myths, shouted another. Why awaken such terror? Only Admiral Kalor of the Irians spoke calmly. If this is true, then why return now? Why did you sleep for so long? The answer came cold and sharp. Because we knew the seal would break. We placed ourselves in slumber, waiting for the signs, and now those signs are here. Not everyone believed. Many saw the humans as manipulators, using fear to seize control. Some demanded the human ship be destroyed before its secrets tore the galaxy apart. Others, shaken by the sheer power they had seen in battle, argued there was no choice but to follow them. But all were united in one truth. If the architects were real, then the galaxy's doom was already written. The humans did not waste time with persuasion. They laid out their course. We will strike at the swarm's heart worlds, the human said. We will provoke them, force them to call to their masters. Only then will the architects reveal themselves. Only then can we face the true war. The council recoiled. To strike directly at the swarm's heart was suicide, yet no one could deny the human certainty. You want to awaken them, Vera whispered. Yes, the human voice answered, because if we wait they will awaken on their own, and then you will not have a chance. The galaxy hesitated, torn between terror and desperate hope, but the humans did not wait for agreement. Their warship began to move, engines roaring with ancient fury, allied ships battered and broken. followed at a distance, some out of fear, others out of curiosity, and a few out of grim loyalty. The course was set, into enemy space, into the swarm's endless dark. As they approached the first swarm stronghold, the galaxy's defenders watched the human vessel in awe and dread. Its weapons hummed with energy no one understood. Its shields shimmered with power beyond imagination. Yet, inside the council chambers, arguments raged. Was humanity leading them to salvation or into the jaws of extinction? One thing was certain. Whatever awaited in the swarm's heart, it was not the end. It was only the beginning. The human ship reached the edge of the swarm's stronghold. Thousands of enemy vessels stirred like a nest of hornets, filling the void with shadows. The Allied fleets braced for death. And then the human voice echoed once more, colder than the void itself. Prepare yourselves. What comes next is not a battle. It is an awakening. The stars trembled as the swarm began to move. The void shook with fire. The swarm's stronghold had awakened, and the galaxy braced for its end. Thousands of enemy ships poured from the black, their hulls gleaming like blades, their engines burning with merciless light. The Allied fleets whispered prayers. This was not a battle they could win. It was the moment of death. But then, across the stars, something stirred. A second signal, stronger, sharper, human. The galaxy had seen one human warship. That alone had broken fleets. But now the void rippled as others answered the call. Humanity had returned, not as whispers of legend, but as wrath given form. The swarm surged forward, their numbers blotting out suns. The Allied ships scattered, shields flickering under the first wave of fire. Entire squadrons vanished in moments. Panic consumed the Council's command channels. "Fall back! Fall back!" screamed captains across the lines. "There is no—" "Falling back," Admiral Kaylor whispered, staring at the black tide. "This is the end." But then space itself cracked. A ripple of light tore through the void. Then another, and another. Vast silhouettes emerged from the dark, each one carrying the same signature as the ancient warship that had led them here. Human ships, not one, not two, but dozens, hundreds. Their hulls gleamed with scars of forgotten wars, their weapons pulsed. With the fury of ages past, they moved like predators unleashed, silent and unyielding. The galaxy's fleets froze in shock. For the first time in countless years, humanity had returned, not as myths, but as a fleet of wrath. The swarm's endless tide crashed forward, but the humans did not flinch. Their weapons ignited like suns tearing open. A single broadside from one human cruiser split a swarm carrier in half, its pieces spinning into the void. Beams of impossible energy cut through swarms by the hundreds. Missiles that shone like falling stars detonated, erasing fleets in burning silence. The swarm, for the first time in its existence, faltered. The Allied commanders watched in stunned awe. They had fought for years, sacrificing everything only to be ground into dust. Now, in mere moments, the humans had turned slaughter into a massacre against the enemy. They're tearing them apart, whispered Chancellor Vera. No, Kaylor said quietly. His eyes gleamed as he watched the humans advance. They're reminding the galaxy who they are. The swarm was not known to retreat. They had no fear, no hesitation, no voice of doubt. But as human fleets carved through them, something strange began to happen. The swarm's formations broke. Their ships scattered in confusion, and deep within the stronghold, signals pulsed. Ancient, terrible signals, summons, cries. They are calling to their masters, the human flagship announced, its voice calm. The architects will hear them. The architects will answer. The galaxy's leaders trembled. The very idea of the architects, the true masters behind the swarm, was nightmare enough. But to see humanity forcing their awakening, dragging them into the light, it was madness, and yet it was working. Inside the Council's war chamber, voices clashed louder than the battles outside. "This is suicide," shouted the Zurathi delegate. "The humans are summoning the very enemy they claim to fear. They will doom us all." "No," Vera said slowly, watching the feeds of human fleets unleashing fury. "They are not summoning. They are hunting." The truth gnawed at every heart. The humans were not afraid of the architects. They had fought them before. They had bled the stars to survive, and now they sought vengeance. The battle raged on, and the humans pressed forward without mercy. Entire sectors of the stronghold burned, swarm hives torn apart like fragile shells. The Allied fleets followed in their wake, emboldened by the impossible. For the first time in living memory, they pushed the swarm back. But even as hope flared, unease spread. The humans fought with precision, but also with something darker: rage. Every strike, every burning world reclaimed, carried the weight of ancient fury. The galaxy began to wonder, were these saviors or executioners? Then it happened. At the heart of the stronghold, as another swarm carrier exploded under human fire, a shockwave rippled across the void. Not of destruction, but of sound, a signal. Low, deep, ancient. It echoed through every channel, every frequency, vibrating in the bones of those who heard it. The swarm fleets froze mid-flight. The stars themselves seemed to dim. And then the human flagship spoke, voice colder than ever. "They have heard us. In the darkness beyond the rim, something moved. Not ships, not fleets. Something larger, something older." The galaxy's sensors, stretched to their limits, began to scream with warnings. Vast gravitational signatures pressed against the void. Energy fields rippled like waves across starlight. The architects were awakening. "They come," the human flagship said, just as we knew they would. Every Allied commander felt their hearts freeze. They had believed the swarm was the end. Now they realized the swarm had only been the shadow. The true storm was rising, and yet the humans did not flinch. Their ships, battered and bloodied from the battle, turned as one toward the approaching. "Darkness, we are humanity," the flagship declared, its voice echoing across every Allied channel. "We do not run, we do not bow, we do not break. Once we fought them alone, now we fight with you. Together we will show the architects that the galaxy does not kneel." The words struck like thunder. For the first time, hope flared not from desperation, but from fire. The Allies roared in defiance. Even the Zurathi, once filled with doubt, shouted their oaths. For if humanity could stand unbroken against such monsters, then perhaps so could they. The swarm fleets shattered, fleeing toward the rim. The humans did not pursue. Their eyes, every weapon, every ship, turned toward the void, where the architects now stirred. The stars flickered, space itself seemed to twist, and then, out of the black, something vast and terrible began to emerge. The first of the architects had returned. The galaxy held its breath. The galaxy stared into the abyss. The swarm was broken, scattered across the stars, but their cries had been answered. From the edge of the void, something larger than worlds began to rise. The architects, the masters behind the swarm, had awakened. They were not ships. They were not even life as the galaxy knew it. They were titans of metal and light, constructs older than suns. Each movement warped gravity. Each breath sent ripples across starlight. The Allied fleets, small, battered, terrified, knew they could not stand. Every world, every star, every hope would fall, and then humanity moved. The first architect emerged, its form like a living star forge. Rings of fire circled its body, its limbs stretched across kilometers of void. Behind it, more shadows stirred, an entire legion of them, rising like gods from their slumber. Every sensor screamed in warning. Energy signatures spiked beyond measurable limits. Even the swarm, once merciless, bent in silence before their masters. "This is the end," whispered Admiral Kaylor, no fleet can fight this. But the humans did not run. Their ships aligned in formation, weapons glowing, engines burning brighter than suns. The flagship spoke, its voice steady and cold. We have waited for this moment. We have not forgotten. Humanity does not bow. The architect struck. Beams of pure annihilation lanced through the void, slicing through Allied fleets as though they were paper. Dozens of ships disintegrated instantly. Entire squadrons vanished in silence, but the humans fired back. Their weapons screamed like thunder. Ancient cannons roared, missiles burned like falling stars, beams of impossible energy cut into the Titans. Armor. One architect staggered, light shattering across its surface. The galaxy gasped. It was possible. Humanity could wound the gods. Still, the price was terrible. Human ships burned alongside the enemy, their sacrifices buying seconds, their fury carving wounds too deep to heal. At first, the galaxy's fleets hesitated. They had fought for years only to fail. They had never believed in victory. But now, watching the humans fight, watching them bleed and burn yet never falter, the Allied commanders made their choice. "This is our chance," Vera declared. "If humanity will not bow, then neither will we." The Zerathi surged forward, their blades of living metal cutting into swarm remnants. The Rhinari unleashed storms of plasma. Even the smallest fleets, once resigned to death, joined the charge. For the first time, the galaxy did not fight alone. It fought as one. The human flagship advanced, driving straight into the heart of the architect formation. "Target their cores," its voice commanded. "Strike with everything." The humans unleashed their most terrible weapons. Planet-breaker cannons roared, collapsing space around the Titans. Swarm hives, caught in the crossfire, disintegrated into ash. One architect fell, its rings shattering. Into fire, the void echoed with its death cry. The galaxy erupted in cheers, but the humans did not stop. This was not victory. This was vengeance. The architects answered with fury. Their combined strike tore through human lines, shattering cruisers and splitting carriers. Entire wings of Allied ships disappeared. The humans did not retreat. Every loss was met with another push. Every fallen ship opened the way for another strike. But Kaylor saw the truth. Even with humanity's return, even with their unmatched fury, the architects were endless. For every Titan that fell, two more rose. "This war cannot be won," he whispered. "Not like this." And then the human flagship revealed its final card. From deep within its core, hidden for millennia, came a signal unlike any other. It pulsed through space, resonating with the same frequency as the architects themselves. The galaxy froze as the flagship spoke. "We were not only their prey, we were their creation." Silence fell. Even the architects seemed to pause. The humans had not been outsiders in this war. They had been born from it, forged as weapons, abandoned as failures, and now they had returned, no longer slaves but executioners. The humans activated their hidden arsenal, technology even the architects had forgotten. Black hole bombs, gravity spears, energy storms that ripped space. Apart, the galaxy watched in awe and terror as humanity became wrath incarnate. Architect after architect fell, torn apart by their own forgotten designs. But every strike consumed human lives. Every weapon demanded sacrifice. One by one, their ships dimmed, their fleets burning away until only the flagship remained. Still, it pressed on, driving into the heart of the Architect Legion. "This is the price of freedom," its voice declared. The flagship ignited its core. Its hull split open, revealing a weapon of unimaginable scale. A star killer, designed to collapse entire systems. "Stand back," it ordered the Allies. "Remember us. Carry the fight forward." The Allied fleets retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The architects, sensing the threat, swarmed the flagship. And then, light. A blast brighter than any sun tore across the void. The architects screamed as their titans were dragged into the collapsing star. The swarm burned in silence. When the light faded, nothing remained. Not the architects, not the swarm, not the human flagship. Only silence. The galaxy stood stunned. The war was over. The architects were gone, but so was humanity, or so it seemed. As the Allies drifted among the ruins, a single signal flickered in the dark. Weak, broken, but unmistakably human. We are not finished. And then it went silent. The galaxy shuddered. Humanity had saved them. Humanity had sacrificed everything, but somewhere, out in the stars, humanity still lived, and the galaxy understood the truth at last. When all was lost, humanity arrived.